The Senate will come to order. Members, please stand for the prayer. Today's chaplain is Reverend Richard Bowler from Valley Community Presbyterian Church in Golden Valley. And following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Loving God, in reverent humility, we turn our hearts and our minds to you this morning. We're eternally grateful for the privilege of living in our state of Minnesota. May we continue to be worthy guardians of our precious heritage of freedom and democracy, O God. We pray this morning that your spirit of justice and compassion will guide our senators as they wrestle with the challenges that face our state. Grant them clear and prophetic vision, O God. Grant them steadfast strength and the courage to legislate. Let no impatience, let no expediency cloud their judgment and diminish the trust bestowed upon them by the citizens they represent. This is our prayer this morning. Amen.
Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. The Secretary will take the roll.
Senators Abler, Anderson, Bach, Benson, Bigham, Carlson, Chamberlain, Champion, Clausen, Coleman, Swedzinski, Dames, Dibble, Dornick, Draheim, Duckworth, Dietzick, Eaton, Eichhorn, Eakin, Fate, Franzen, Friends, Gazelka, Goggin, Herr, Hoffman, Housley, Howe, Ingebrigtsen, Isaacson, Jasinski, Johnson, Johnson, Stewart, Kent, Kiffmeyer, Klein, Karan, Kunish, Lang, Latz, Limmer, Marty, Matthews, McEwen, Miller, Murphy, Nelson, Newman, Newton, Osmick, Pappas, Port, Pratt, Putnam, Rarick, Rest, Rosen, Rude, Senjum, Tomasoni, Torres Ray, Utke, Weber, Westrom, Uyghur, Wickland.
A quorum is present. Pursuant to Rule 14.1, the following members intend to vote under Rule 40.7. Senators Anderson, Carlson, Champion, Clausen, Coleman, Dibble, Dietzick, Eaton, Herr, Ingebrigtsen, Isaacson, Latz, McEwen, Newton, Pappas, Senjum, Weber, and Wickland. We'll begin on the agenda today with the fifth order of business, reports of committees. We have one additional report to be read by the Secretary.
Senator Rosen from the Committee on Finance, to which was referred Senate File Number 694, Bill for an Act relating to state government. Reports the same back with a recommendation that the bill do pass.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the committee reports printed in the agenda and read by the Secretary be adopted.
On the adoption of the committee reports, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. We'll move to the sixth order of business, second reading of Senate bills. The Secretary will read the Senate file numbers.
Senate File Numbers 920, 635, and 694.
Second reading. Next, we'll move to the eighth order of business, introduction and first reading of Senate bills listed in today's introduction calendar. Our Senate file numbers 1139 through 1212. These Senate files are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Next, we'll move to the ninth order of business, motions and resolutions. We have several authors' motions listed in the agenda. We'll take these authors' motions as one motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. We have a couple authors' motions. The first is Senator Karan. Senator Karan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate File 526 be withdrawn from the Committee on Higher Education and Finance and Policy and re-referred to the Committee on Education, Finance and Policy.
Senator Curran, please confirm that this is your bill and you have discussed this with both committee
It is my
chairs.
bill, and I've spoken to both committee chairs.
Discussion on the Curran motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion prevails. Senator Frentz.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move that Senate File 728 be withdrawn from the Committee on Human Services Reform and Policy and re-referred to the Committee on Education Finance. I am the chief author and understand that this is agreeable to the chairs.
Discussion on the Frentz motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion prevails. Remaining under motions and resolutions, Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 26, I designate the following bill be made for special order for immediate consideration, Senate File Number 2.
Members, the bill up for consideration is number 25 on general order, Senate File 2. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Senate File 2 is about our most important commodity for the future. It is about our children, and it is about their education. And we are speaking of our future. Their futures are very much tied to their education. That's why I am bringing you Senate File 2. Now, members, you are going to say, oh, this feels a little like deja vu. And yes, it does, because we talked about this in July. The bill before you today is very narrowly crafted. It simply is looking at the governor's emergency powers orders, and it is removing from those orders the ability of the governor to close or alter school schedules based on peacetime emergency powers. Members, this decision belongs in our local school districts who know the conditions on the ground the best. They know their students' needs the best. They know the risk mitigation efforts that have been taken the best. And ultimately, it is these local school districts and their parents and the educators that are responsible for children's education. Members, we have learned so much in the last year, almost a year ago. Governor Walz, under his declared a peacetime emergency and quickly thereafter used peacetime emergency powers to close schools. And members, we have learned an extraordinary amount since that time. We have learned that the fatality rate is much lower than we thought. We have learned that the virus does not affect all people equally. The elderly have a far, far greater chance of contracting COVID, serious conditions, fatality particularly. The science is showing us that children are not super spreaders. That children actually have, in 2020, had a greater incidence of flu than of contracting COVID-19. The science is also clear that we now have therapies, treatments, and we are so thankful for those vaccines. And we can never salute enough and thank those healthcare workers who stood on the front lines and cared compassionately for those who had COVID. But today, fortunately, we are in a different world where we do have vaccines, treatments, and therapies. And in addition to learning much about the vaccine, members, we have learned an incredible, heartbreaking amount about what school closures have cost our kids. We have seen failures skyrocket. You have data about that. We have seen mental health needs ratchet up incredibly. CDC studies showed that 1 out of 4 young adults has seriously considered suicide. These are things that should shock our soul. And unfortunately, our most at-risk kids have been impacted the most with these school closures. And it is time that we return to the local school districts the ability to determine how best to safely open their schools. It's a finely tailored bill. The governor, I'm glad to see the governor has come to the same recognition. Maybe a little late, but we are glad that the governor is also recognizing the importance of getting kids back in school. But it was so devastating what happened that we have to make sure that our children are never put in this type of a risk again. So with that, members, I am ready and willing to answer questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Discussion on Senate File Number 2. Senator Uyghur.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Senate File 2. Clearly, the pandemic has had a dramatic impact and disrupted each of our lives. We agree. The issue before us now, if in fact we agree that we are in a pandemic, is it appropriate to revoke the authority of the governor, regardless of who he or she may be, to revoke the authority to act in the time of an emergency? Back in 1951, the statute was originally passed, and it saw the need addressing civil defense, various items that can come up that we need to be prepared, whether it's war, attack. It was further amended in 1979, which included provisions regarding education. It's only been used, actually, it was Governor Carlson on the emergency powers, and it was for closing schools because it was too cold, and that was used twice. Governor Dayton used it once, but actually, he did close schools but didn't invoke that executive order. It's to be rarely used, but legislators, and I'm quite sure it passed unanimously back then, but they recognize there will be situations where we need a coordinated approach. And Mr. President, would Senator Nelson please yield?
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Uyghur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, is it a good idea to have comprehensive emergency operation plans?
Senator Nelson.
That's a very open-ended question, but I believe it is.
Senator Uyghur.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Nelson continue to yield.
Senator Nelson will continue to yield.
Mr. President.
Senator Nelson, for what reason do you rise?
I will yield to one more set of questions from Senator Uyghur. I encourage him to encompass them into one. Thank you.
Senator Uyghur.
Okay, Mr. President, I can't encompass it into one question, but I will ask an additional question. Thank you for yielding. Senator Nelson, have you talk to school board members in Rochester or in your immediate area that have talked about how their efforts to open their school have been thwarted?
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Senator Uyghur. I have spoken with many parents in the Rochester area and parents and medical providers throughout the state. Now, interestingly enough, Senator Uyghur, the Rochester Public Schools, in some cases, have chosen to be stricter than what the governor would allow. I want to be very clear, members. Senate File 2 only limits the governor from dictating to schools how and when they can or cannot be open during a peacetime emergency. Senate File 2 does not require that school districts be open or not be open. Senate File 2 places that authority with the local school boards, as I said, who know their students, the risk mitigations the best.
Senator Uyghur.
Mr. Chair, I believe now 809 public schools are fully open, 626 are in a hybrid, 271 in distance learning, and this is evolving that schools are opening. Members, does this, I'll ask it rhetorically, does this sound like a one-size-fit-all? No. The rollout has been working. And Mr. President, Senator Nelson, would you continue to yield?
Senator Nelson, will you yield?
Mr. President, I will yield, but I ask Senator Uyghur to put his questions all together, as many as he needs to ask. I will take copious notes, and I will answer them all. Thank you.
Senator Uyghur. Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Uyghur.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. In committee, we had a few minutes, 2 testifiers on each side. We knew it was coming to the floor. We had 4 bills that day. It was very limited where for inquiry, so this is our opportunity. I had asked whether there had been consultation with the local school boards, et cetera. I didn't hear an answer. I heard parents. I've heard from a lot of parents. And yes, people want the kids back in school, but they want it to be done safely. For school boards, I had asked, as soon as Senate File 2 was introduced, I contacted the 4 districts in my Senate district, and I hope each of you did. And right away, right to the superintendent and then to the boards. Do you support Senate File 2? No, no, no for all of them. And they talked about the need for resources. I asked, how has it been in terms of the working with the governor on the peacetime authority, on the executive orders put in? Has there been controversy? Yes, we're in a pandemic. We're trying to save lives. And staff, who has been heroic, has asked for protections. But their focus was on additional resources so they can get the job done. And again, on the question, Governor Walz, is he doing his job? Is this guidance for you? The answer was yes. And again, I pointed out, we have a variety of models that are in place in Minnesota based on local needs. There are guardrails, there's guidance to assist districts.
Mr. President.
We did not, Lane Foundation.
Senator Kiffmeyer, for what reason do you rise?
Well, I'm concerned because a question is supposed to be asked right now of Senator Nelson. She's ready to take copious notes, but not on the entire issue that's coming forth here right now, I think the members should ask the question and let the author respond.
Senator Kiffmeyer, I believe the question was already asked and answered, and Senator Uyghur is just continuing with his thoughts on the bill, but correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Uyghur, but I believe you already asked the question.
Yes, and Mr. President, I realize that Senator Nelson does not have to yield, and perhaps I'll return with some additional questions, but I want to make some initial points. Regardless of who the governor is, he or she's authority to act during an emergency should not be revoked. That is not responsible. And legislators saw the need for doing that. I asked many school boards, do they support this? The answer was no. The Minnesota School Boards Association, do you support Senate File 2? No. And perhaps later we can go into some of the comments that they shared, concerns. Has there been controversy? Yes. All of our lives are disrupted. But you know what they're talking about? We need resources. You want to open the schools? Fine, give us resources. Teachers are concerned. I got an email late last night in District 622 from the teachers saying 250 have had vaccines, but there's 1,600 on staff. Do they have a right for expectation of being safe? I say yes. So to say open up, that's fine, but they need resources. The MSBA, I mentioned them. The same for the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. Both those groups include many parts of Minnesota. The rural education, rural school boards. Yes, you may find some members that oppose or support this, but the groups that speak up for them have said, don't revoke this needed authority. The Association of School Administrators, they actually did testify. There was time for them. Perhaps later I can go into the specific items. The bottom line was that this guidance is needed, and assuming you agree that it's good to have guidance, they also talked about the helpfulness in working and having the governor's authority in place. No one said to revoke it. And I've heard shaming by some of the teachers because they're concerned about safety and that we're blocking schools from opening, to be concerned about their safety and their families. Come on. There are a number of other groups. Healthcare professionals have weighed in. And by the way, the schools, they've been taking care of the children of a lot of these brave healthcare professionals, others in the front lines. They need additional resources. And they do not want us to revoke this emergency power. It's needed. We did have one person that I was really pleased when I saw for the committee that, hey, we're going to have a physician, and I believe she was ready to testify, and I was going to ask questions about, but then, and I was delighted that she was from Mayo Clinic, because I have the highest regard, and how proud I know you are, Senator Nelson, of that clinic. And I thought we could talk about how Mayo Clinic views the pandemic and emergency action. But the physician mentioned she was not there for Mayo Clinic and more of a parent perspective, and that's fine, and parents are frustrated. But I didn't see talk about revoking this as a responsible way to handle the emergency. I would have loved, actually, to have had testimony from Mayo Clinic from Dr. Gazelka. Yes, there was a Dr. Gazelka there. And there was a Dr. Poland. They do a great podcast on COVID-19. You'll learn a lot. So but I would, and perhaps we could have a hearing just to continue to learn more, because we have not spent enough committee time on this. Mr. President, I oppose this. I believe it undermines our state's emergency management system. It's not needed, and it puts 1 million students and staff at risk. Do not tie the hands, do not gag the governor or a future governor, whoever he or she may be. Vote no.
Further discussion on Senate File 2. Next, I have Senator Franzen, followed by Senator Torres Ray. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senator Nelson. I have a lot of questions, but assuming we're kind of narrowing debate, I have them in writing if you want me to send them over, because I think they're important, but I'm going to read them. If I can get a page to give them to Senator Nelson so she can prep, that would be great. But you know, we have a lot of different opinions about schools and teachers and the resources that we have and the governor's actions during this pandemic. It's all been new to all of us, frankly, in our lifetime. So I would just say that the members of school boards that I've heard from in my district are all grappling with the same issues that we are in this body. On healthcare, PPE, support for our businesses, getting kids back to school, getting the vaccination rolled out. This has all been a first for so many of us. And it's easy to criticize people's actions because we're not in their position to make those decisions. But I will say that the emails and the conversations I've had with school board members, for instance, in my district, I represent Edina, Bloomington, Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, and I have Hopkins and Richfield school districts in my district too. A lot of them have been, you know, no one's been prepared to run for office, to run to represent a school board and a school district, and then make decisions, life or death decisions about the people in those schools. That's not what they ran for. That's not what any of us ran for. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event, a crisis of worldwide proportions. And it's easy to criticize other states, the federal government, the governor, each other, but that's not what's needed. What's needed is action. What's needed is a plan, one that's failed to come from this body because we fail to work together. This bill is an example. It's easy to just say, flip off a switch. You have no power, Governor. You have no power to go into the schools and provide the expertise that the state government can have, the expertise that the federal government can give the state government to give to local jurisdictions. We'll just turn off that switch. Only if the school districts want it can they come, right? But if there's any other emergency, right now we're dealing with a pandemic. But my question, one of them, and it's not on that list, as a mother of a 5- and 4-year-old, I worry that this bill goes too far, not just to penalize the actions of one governor today, but in the future, tying our hands to literally prevent disaster from happening in our schools. Again, back to the conversations I've had with my school district and parents, many parents, very mad parents, very angry parents, very thankful parents, and very confused parents, all of the above, and I'm one of them. They're grappling with really important decisions for the health of our kids, for the health of the workers, in this case teachers, the health of custodians, the health of janitors, the health of every single person who fills in those lunches, because we're getting them in a different form if you're doing distance learning. And instead of thanking them for their heroic and brave work and flexibility and creativity, going above and beyond, we think flipping a switch is just going to change it. It's going to fix it. Well, I think this plan, in my humble opinion, might seem easy, straightforward. It only makes the issue worse, because we need leadership. If it doesn't come from the federal government, we need it from the state government. We need it from each other. And this bill really is short-sighted. What if we have another emergency that we can't even think about? I'm a lawyer. We can think of 20 million hypotheticals I can throw at you, Senator Nelson, for you to ask, what if another emergency? What if we find some virus in a building 5 years down the road and we have to send the National Guard? They're not far-fetched issues anymore because that's what's happening. We have the virus in our schools. And we could send the National Guard to help. But are you tying the hands of our governor today, tomorrow, 5, 10 years down the road? Is that really going to equip us with solutions to deal with emergencies? That's the basis of my hesitation with this bill and why I think this bill is short-sighted, and I will be a no vote. But to my questions, and I'm going to try to keep them concise because I know we could be here all day with questions. Senator Nelson, will you yield for a few questions?
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, will your bill revoke Executive Order 2054? And if so, how are we going to protect workers from unsafe working conditions?
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Franzen, I am so glad you asked me to yield on this question. I have been writing down. I do want to be very clear, members. Let me just restate. Senate File 2 does not eliminate the governor's executive emergency powers during a peacetime. All of those are still in place under Senate File 2. Senate File 2 does not remove any executive orders, nor does it limit the governor from any executive orders except in the case of closing and altering school schedules mandated from the governor. And let me be very clear, it does not prohibit guidance and advice. We cannot expect our school districts to have all of that information. We want that guidance and advice. So it is just very narrowly tailored to school closures as a result of the governor's peacetime emergency powers.
Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Nelson, for that clarification. So this bill will not hinder the ability for employers to discriminate against their employees, retaliating against them for not wearing protective gear. Would it also allow them to have protections in case of being containing the virus or contracting, the virus? Would this bill help in any way to support those workers in that employment setting?
Senator Franzen, are you asking Senator
Yes,
Nelson to yield again?
Mr. President, yes, I will ask her to yield.
Senator Nelson, did you catch those questions?
I can, and I'll answer them again. I'll just be as clear as I can. This Senate File 2 would not affect Executive Order 2054 that Senator Franzen is referring to. It would not affect any executive orders except the one executive order that mandated school closures and altered their schedules. Everything else stays in place.
Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Senator Nelson, I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like this bill would do nothing to protect the teachers that you're and the custodians and the all the administration and everyone working in that building. This bill does nothing to protect them. I'll go on to my second question, Mr. President, if Senator Nelson will yield.
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, will Senate File 2 revoke the Executive Order 2081, all school districts committed to mandatory face coverings to protect students and staff? How would this bill interact with that executive order?
Senator Nelson.
Mr. President, this is probably the third or fourth time I've said this, but let me be very clear. Senate File 2 only affects the governor's ability to cancel and alter school schedules through his peacetime emergency powers. And quite frankly, Senator Franzen or anyone else could stand up and say, this bill does nothing to fund schools. Well, no, it doesn't. That's not the purpose of this bill. They could say Senate File 2 does nothing to provide resources to our schools. Well, no, it doesn't. That's not the purpose of this bill. But let me just say, over $1 billion of funding has already come from the from the feds as resources for our schools to provide those resources. So members, let's not be led down a path to think that Senate File 2 is the be-all and end-all and it does everything that needs to be done in this place. No, it does not. It is very narrow, tailored, focused on the emergency powers that the governor uses to close and alter school schedules. So members, I think that is extremely clear, and I would encourage members to understand those words. However, I'll be glad to answer other questions, but please, members, do not forget what the bill does. I encourage you to read the bill and know that it does not affect any executive orders except the one regarding school closures and altering of schedules. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Nelson, again for your clarification. And I'm hearing you. I'm hearing that this bill does nothing to provide school districts with additional protections for their students and their staff and the people that work in our schools every day, including parents that drop off school children to the schools every day. I'm assuming, Mr. President, and if Senator Nelson will continue to yield.
Senator Nelson will continue to yield. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Nelson, for yielding. That this bill would also would revoke or not revoke, and in this case, you're saying that it doesn't revoke Executive Order 2094, which is where every school district would assume they're going to be committed to providing extra time for school prep and teachers. So this bill essentially does nothing other than turning off a switch that does nothing to prevent the harm from a global pandemic, does nothing to give the schools the resources they need to open safely, the resources they need to make the decisions, to your point, Senator Nelson, about the school schedules, about who is safe and how long and for how many months, and when to turn off and off that school schedule. This does nothing to provide the tools to make those informed decisions. I think, Mr. President, Senator Nelson, and members, that this bill speaks for itself. It's a bill that does nothing to save kids, to help teachers, to help custodians, to help parents deal with the issue of this pandemic that has affected and disrupted every single being in this state. So, Senator Nelson, I really do question the motives of this bill, which I can't question your personal motives, but the intention of the bill is to help school districts. I think this bill does exactly the opposite. It exactly makes what my point earlier of having people making decisions that they have no resources to make without the partnership of the administration, without the partnership of experts like the Commission of Health, the Commission of Health and Human Services, the Commission of Public Safety, all of these entities in our state government that are equipped and funded by this legislature to give those school districts and local jurisdictions the tools and information that they need to make these informed decisions. You're cutting them off. You're essentially saying, go on your own. Make this decision on your own. Who cares what the ramifications are for our state? I think it's short-sighted, dangerous, and I vote no, and I hope other members join me. Thank you.
Senator Nelson.
Mr. President, if I could, to that point.
President.
Senator Benson, for what reason do you rise?
I need to correct something that was just said. This bill doesn't cut off the ability for schools to work with local public health. Local public health and school nurses coordinate closely when we have influenza outbreaks, when checking records for children's health at school. So I wanted to make sure that incorrect comments did not stand on this floor.
Senator Nelson, and then we're going to go to Senator Torres Ray and Senator Fateh. Senator Nelson, any?
Mr. President, I do thank Senator Benson for raising. That was my point. There's no shut off. There's no cut off. There's no go it alone. We encourage guidance and partnership. So thank you, Senator Benson, for correcting the record. I appreciate that.
Senator Torres-Ray, followed by Senator Fateh. Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things I think that we need to tell the community. Number one, the governor is opening the schools. So there is a plan, and the plan is sound, and it's happening. So the purpose of this bill is unclear. And I would like to ask Senator Nelson a couple of questions with respect to what will be accomplished with this bill.
Senator Nelson, will you yield to Senator Torres-Ray? She will. Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Nelson. So there are two parts to this bill, to your proposal, Senator Nelson. The first part, and I think I ask you for your patience because we're trying to read your bill, and you're explaining, and you know we don't want to ask the same question time and time again. But the language in the bill is very, very clear, right? It says the governor may not use any authority provided under this chapter to use any order or to authorize the Commissioner of Education to alter school schedules, curtail school activities, and it goes on, right? So my question to you is, when we pass this legislation, say in this weather, we have a catastrophic event.
Mr. President.
What?
Senator Johnson, for what reason do you rise?
Would point of order.
Please state your point of order.
36.8 says all remarks during debate shall be addressed to the President. Just a reminder.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senator Torres-Ray, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Senator Nelson, in a situation where we have, let's say, a catastrophic event during the winter, what do we need to do? The governor will not have the authority to close the schools or make a decision. Do we have to come back here and give him the authority to act in an event of, a winter event, a situation where he has to make a decision in a region, a specific district? Could you, what is unclear, and we're asking the same question and you're saying, this is very specific. Yeah, we get it. We can read this legislation. But when you say the governor may not use any authority, could you tell us what would happen in an event of a catastrophic event?
Members, just a reminder, as Senator Johnson said, please make your remarks to and through the President. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Torres-Ray, I am so very glad that you asked. I would refer members to the bill language, always a good place to look. Page 3, line 16. I know we're in an unusual spot here where you might not have everything in front of you, but please indulge me, allow me to read it to you. The governor may not use any authority under this chapter. Members, that's under Chapter 12, the Emergency Powers Chapter. So to Senator Torres-Ray's question, the bill is self-explanatory. It is only under Chapter 12, Peacetime Emergency Powers. I do want to address, I think it was Senator Torres-Ray or perhaps Senator Franson, the issue, great harm has been done to our children. And this bill would make sure that that does not happen again in such a broad way.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, my question is very specific. I understand that it is during this time, but we could have a catastrophic event during the peacetime. It is under this chapter. So my question to you is very specific, right? If we have a situation where the governor needs to close the schools, would this prevent the governor from making that decision for the state of Minnesota, right? I understand it is within this frame. I understand it's within this chapter. I understand it's just for this time. But that doesn't mean that catastrophic events cannot happen, right? So do we have to come back here and actually give the power back so that he can actually make that decision to protect students or those specific districts? Could you I mean, this is just a very specific question, right? Because you're taking these powers away during a time frame. I get it. I understand that. But what could be the consequence in a situation where the governor needs to act? You know, let's remember what's happening in Texas right now, right? Is the peacetime, same time, is happening. They have to decide, a governor has to make a decision about what to do. I just would like to have an explanation of how did this work?
Again, members, I know it's difficult, especially with the microphones on the side, but please address your comments to and through the president. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Torres-Ray, I appreciate your more fully developed question. I do understand that you are concerned about should there be a need to close schools during a peacetime emergency, and you're wondering how this bill would affect that. And members, that is the very point for Senate File 2. Local school districts can make those decisions. They are not beholden. They do not have to stay open until the governor says you need to close. We appreciate all the guidance from MDH, all the guidance, but the governor does not have to make that decision. But more importantly, that is, if it's a statewide issue, I suppose that would be an issue for the legislature, determining if that statewide emergency powers needed to include those school closures again. But the point is, members, it is the legislators, or it is the local school districts who make that decision. Sometimes we get into this mind frame that thinks, we can't make decisions on our own. We have to have somebody from up high telling us what we know we need to do. Well, members, that is so far from the truth, and that is so far from how our school districts operate, and our teachers and our school staff who also have been suffering during this pandemic. And don't get me started on the tenuous place the governor put teachers in when he said, now you have 8 days to put your classroom online for distance learning. I'm just telling you, that was not taking good care of our school staff.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, you know, we do have a system, and we have both served for many years in the Education Committee, where local governments do make these decisions. It just so happened that we are in a pandemic. That's the difference. And the governor is actually working on a plan to open schools in consultation with the local communities, right? So it is clear that this presents a problem. And for members, all I want you to think about when you're going to vote for this is precisely the confusion with this type of language, right? We really are not helping schools and our state move into a process of opening our schools safely. No, we're not. What we're doing is telling the governor, you cannot do that, period. No more. That's it. It's just a political action of telling the governor what to do. My second question, Senator, has to do with the second part of this proposal that you have in front of us. It says in line 322, the governor may advise and consult with school leaders regarding any action needed for emergency management purposes. It just so happened that they already do that. And I would like to ask, Senator, because you were the chair of the Education Committee, how many times did you attend the Equitable Safe Learning Advisory Group meetings?
Senator Nelson looks like she will yield. Senator Nelson.
I will be glad to yield, Mr. President. I think I heard two questions there. The question is, why is it written in the bill that the governor may advise and consult with school leaders regarding any action needed for emergency management purposes? Well, it was written in the legislation specifically to address what I assumed would be the many questions that we heard on the floor today about turning off the light switch and go it alone, and governor can have no input. So it was in there kind of proactively, perhaps, to try and shorten the debate a bit and answer the questions that I thought some may be asking. And Senator Torres-Ray, you asked about a certain meetings that I had attended, and I couldn't exactly hear what you were speaking of, but I can tell you this. As chair of the Education Committee, I had numerous calls with the Education Commissioner Rickert. We have each other's cell phones. We use them often, and often had long calls, and also with her staff as well. And I do appreciate the fact that the commissioner and her staff, when I was chair of the Education Committee, they did reach out. We did have discussions before the spending of $1 billion, for example, that the feds have sent this way. And of course, they laid out how they were going to spend that $1 billion. Unfortunately, there wasn't any input into how I thought those dollars should be spent, but many of them were spent well. I think there were other ways to spend them. But I think your question is, had I been, as the chair, in contact with the governor's office? And I would say most definitely.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, actually, that was not my question. Yeah, the commissioner has been in touch with us, with many of us, and we're in constant communication with her, answering questions about our district. I'm just asking a question related to your proposal. I understand the language that you're proposing, right? So my question to you is, in here you have new language that says the governor may advise and consult with school leaders, etc., right? So you're proposing that we do that, and I'm just letting you know that they already do that, and I have a list of multiple activities that they do. They meet with school leaders, representatives every other week. They set up public meetings with MDE and MDH, provide the numbers of cases in schools, etc. And they have invited us to be part of this Equitable Safe Learning Advisory Group so that we understand what the process of advising is, right? They have said, we want you to know how we provide advice and how we involve local communities in this decision making. We're not making decisions on our own. So my question to you, Senator, is, have you been part of those efforts that consult with local communities about how to open the schools? Do you know what that process means? And how is that connected to this legislation that you're proposing today? Because it seems that that's already happening, but you are asking with this proposal that they do that. That's my question.
Senator Torres-Ray, are you asking Senator Nelson to yield again?
Yes, please.
Senator Nelson,
Mr.
would you like
President,
to yield?
Sorry.
Senator Nelson.
So, thank you, Mr. President. Senator Torres-Ray, I think I heard a couple of questions in there. Yes, I've been involved in those advisory calls. Many of them were on Microsoft Teams. I've also had meetings with superintendents in my area, superintendents across the southern tier of the state. As chair, of course, I heard from superintendents all over the state, and school board members and parents and teachers. And students. So yes, I have certainly been involved in that. And I have to say, you will recognize this. Methinketh thou doth protest too much. In other words, I'm not sure what all the protest is about, because the things that you're asking about are not in conflict with this bill. And in fact, Senate File 2 very well may have been what prodded the governor on to, because a week ago the commissioner had no plan to open middle and high schools. There was no plan, as she stated in the Education Committee, and since that time we've had 2 hearings on Senate File 2. And the Minnesota Association for School Board they sent me a letter as well. And you know, the whole letter was, we support local control and all the things that I have just said. And the last line said, we do not support Senate File 2. Well, that was before the governor had made his, I think, a step in the right direction, which is to say schools will open. Our middle school and high schools will open. So quite frankly, members, this bill is so finely tailored. It is even less prescriptive than what the governor said, which is we will do this. And the point is, he should continue to provide guidance, and MDE and MDH both should provide guidance. But the ultimate decision lies with the decision makers about the school district and those schedules.
Senator Torsray.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Nelson. I just want to point to the members that are about to vote for this bill that this is just simply not necessary. It's not what it is. It's just not. The governor is opening the schools, and the governor and his staff are in constant communication with school districts to figure out a plan. So none of this is needed. So you have to ask, what is the point of this? And I'm not going to go there because everybody knows what the point is. We know what the point is. We have to elect a governor in 2 years. We know what the point is. But I am going to share with you, Mr. President and members, and Senator Nelson, and I don't know what members of the Education Committee are here. These are the 4 key issues that people in my district and people in other districts are asking for. This is what they want us to address, Mr. President and members. Not how we get to the governor and fight with the governor about his executive orders. That's not what they are asking. This is what they are asking. Could you let us know if teachers and staff are going to be vaccinated before the end of the year? Are there enough vaccines for staff and teachers and people who work in the schools? They're asking that question. They're asking, are we having enough drivers available to go pick up all the children? What's going to happen in the buses for children? When are we going to vaccinate our students? They also want to know, what is the plan to help my son, my daughter, my children catch up with school? They just kind of lost track of what it means to be in the classroom. Is there a plan? Are there resources to help them readapt to being in the classroom? Teachers are asking this question. My students have been away from school for so long that I am afraid they don't know what it means to be back in the classroom, and they are afraid that they are going to be sick. I need help and assistance in the classroom. Well, guess what? We haven't even had a meeting or a hearing in the committee to talk about it. We have no resources to help these teachers. So the answer to these teachers is, we don't have a plan because we are going to take the executive power away from the governor. Vaccines? Oh, no, we're going to take away the executive power of the governor. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go after the governor. That's the answer every time. Principals are asking this very key question. What will happen in the event that we have children contracting COVID and then they go back home and a parent dies? Am I liable because that child got sick in my classroom, in my school? Do I have to be prepared? What kind of money am I going to need in order to respond? We have thousands and thousands of kids going back home, and they may be sick. What am I going to do? What is the plan? Senator Nelson, do you know what is the plan? Do you know what the Department of Education is doing to respond to those questions? I just would like to know, because those are the questions that I am being asked. People are not asking me, what is the executive power of the governor? So, Mr. President and Senator Nelson, I just want an answer to those questions that are the key questions from parents, educators, administrators. Does your bill help us answer those questions? Why do we need to vote for a bill that doesn't respond to those questions? Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Nelson. I do know the answer. The answer is not in this bill. The answer is not in this bill for educators, for families, for students, because this is not about the education and the future of our children. This is not what this is. So please vote no.
Mr. President.
Senator Nelson.
I rise in objection to Senator Torres Ray's early remarks. I'll ask the Secretary to read those back. She specifically called upon motivation and specifically talked about the reason for Senate File 2 had something to do with electing the governor in 2 years. I would like to have those words read back. They should be struck from the record. Members, we have started off on a rocky road this year at a time when our constituents need us to work together on things that we can respectfully and disagree when we must. And in our previous sessions this year, we heard much about casting motivation. And we have heard it again so very clearly on the Senate floor. And I sat here debating about whether to bring it up or not. Because, you know, I have a thick skin. I can stand those things. I don't believe that. People know that. But I think for the good of the Senate, for the very important issues that we must debate this year, it is imperative on every one of us that we refrain, we obey our Senate rules, we honor those rules, we follow Mason's manual. We do not cast dispersions on members' motives. And I would ask that those words be read back and be struck from the record. And I hope, members, that we all are much more thoughtful in our speech and debate going forward.
Members, the Secretary does not read back or take notes on the discussion, so there's nothing for him to read back. But I will remind members, if everyone would take out their rules book and just look at Rule 36.2 said the member shall speak only to the question under debate and avoid personality. I have given quite a bit of flexibility and latitude, and we will try to rein that in a little bit. And then I believe what Senator Nelson is referring to is in Mason's section 129, or I'm sorry, 121, number 2. I'll just read the first couple or the first few words here. No person may indulge in personalities or impugn motives of a member. So just a reminder to all members, let's keep it cordial, let's keep it to the point, let's not impugn motives or involve personalities, let's keep the topic to the question and the bill in front of us. All right, next on my list is Senator Fateh, followed by Senator Frentz. Senator Rest, for what reason do you rise?
Just advice on those points that you were just reading, that
Please,
maybe the more appropriate avenue for members is to consider the avenue of a protest and dissent.
Okay. Senator Rest, I did not quite hear that, but I will go back and check the record and...
Oh.
Please repeat it, Senator Rest. I didn't hear what you said.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Just wanted to perhaps suggest that an objection could be filed to a member's remarks, perhaps through protest and dissent.
Okay.
That would be an avenue rather than we don't record and don't ask the Secretary to record comments, but there is an avenue to express dissent. Protest.
Thank you, Senator Rest, for that advice. All right, next on the list is Senator Fateh, followed by Senator Frentz. Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I think about this legislation, I have two major areas of concern. One is a racial justice piece, and one is a workers' rights piece. We know that our teachers are not the highest paid employees in the state, but they do what they do because they love their work. But that doesn't mean that they're not entitled to some of the most basic tenets of workers' protection and adequate protection. So, Mr. President, will Senator Nelson yield for some questions?
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Fateh.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Senator Nelson.
Mr. President, respectfully, Senator Fateh's questions have nothing to do with this legislation. I will be glad to listen to his questions, and but I do want to be very clear, this bill is not about workers' rights or racial justice. It's about the governor unilaterally closing schools during a peacetime emergency. But I'll be glad to listen to Senator Fateh's questions.
Senator Nelson, I don't think he's asked the questions yet, but he is asking you to yield. Senator Fateh.
Yes, I hope it's to a question I can speak to.
Senator Fateh to Senate File 2. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Nelson. Is there anything in your bill that would extend workers' compensation presumption of eligibility to teachers?
Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. Senator, I carried legislation that did those things in our previous special sessions, but I will reiterate that this bill is a very finely narrow bill, and I certainly hope as we go forward that we do not expect one bill to encompass all the things that we need to do in this place. But you bring up very real concerns, Senator Fateh, regarding racial justice and workers' rights. And I have worked on equity issues, will continue to do so. I believe education is the great equalizer. It's one of the things that makes me the most sad about the governor's closures. It has hurt our students of color the most. But there's nothing particular about those issues in this very short, finely sculpted bill about the governor's emergency powers being used to close and alter school schedules.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll take that answer as a no, and I would love to see those words into practice. So, Senator Nelson, is there anything in your bill that would extend workers' compensation presumption of eligibility to ESPs?
Mr. President.
Senator Benson, for what
Point of order,
reason?
what is the question before the body?
The question before the body is Senate File 2.
And so, Mr. President, are we going to talk about things that aren't addressed in Senate File 2, or are we going to talk about things that are addressed in Senate File 2?
Senator Benson, Senator Fateh is asking his questions. I don't want to anticipate what his questions are, but I would just encourage members to listen to the debate and the questions that have already been asked. I think some of the questions that, or at least the first question that Senator Fateh asked has already been answered earlier. But Senator Benson, anything further?
Mr. President, I'm fine with asking questions that will help us in the debate about Senate File 2 and not every other subject that could come before the body, especially about education. But if we're going to get into workers' rights and workers' compensation, we could get quite extensive in debate.
Thank you, Senator Benson. And members, Senator Nelson has mentioned that the bill is very narrowly tailored and has answered several questions. She's been very thoughtful in her responses and has answered every question I believe that's been answered. But please keep your questions and the debate to Senate File 2. Senator Frentz, what reason do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Advice on the issue, which is, I believe it is appropriate in Senate debate to point out things that are not contained in a bill which might have been. And I just offer the President that insight and advice as this question goes forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. But at the same time, there's a lot that is not contained in this bill, and that's been made very clear. This bill is very narrow, so Senator Nelson has made that very clear. I think she's answered several questions again. So, Senator Fateh, the floor is yours.
Mr. President, respectfully, we're debating a bill about our schools, and our schools cannot function without our ESPs or teachers. So these questions are very relevant to this bill. So thank you, Mr. President. I'll ask my question again. Senator Nelson, is there anything in your bill that would extend workers' compensation presumption of eligibility to educational support professionals?
Senator Nelson.
Mr. President, members, thank you so much. I have said over and over that Senate File 2 is very narrowly tailored, but I do want to reassure Senator Fate. I think he may be wondering about my support for education. And let me, I know, Senator Fate, this is your first term in the Senate, and so I'll just give you just a tad bit of history. When I was education chair, we passed the largest education funding bill in the history of our state. It increased funding more than the cost of inflation. And so to your questions about support for education, I would strongly encourage you and the public and anyone else to look at my record on education, and I'll be more than glad to talk about early education scholarships and how they have been so successful in preparing kids for kindergarten, or talk about PSEO, which has provided remarkable education opportunities for our students at no cost to get education, higher education degrees, and they have increased graduation rates. So, Mr. President, I will be glad to talk about all of those things, but I do know that the members are much focused on Senate File 2, and I will refrain from talking about the importance of education. But the one last thing I will say, I stood on this Senate floor during special session and said that all teachers should be vaccinated. So I did want to get that on the record because there were some questions about that continued to come up. And you can go back and look during the special sessions. I believe it was the July 20th when I stood down here and said, and all teachers need to be prioritized for vaccinations.
Senator Fate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the history lesson, but what we're talking about is reopening our schools in the midst of a pandemic and protecting our kids and our teachers. And in 7 special sessions, this Senate body, led by one side, did not have the foresight to have any hearing, not one single hearing, on coordinating the reopening of our schools. So I want to make sure that's known. So thank you, Mr. President. So Senator Nelson, is there anything in your bill that would guarantee teachers leave should they have to quarantine due to the contraction of COVID-19?
Senator Fate, are you asking Senator Nelson to yield?
Yes, and I could re-ask the
Senator
question.
Nelson, did you catch the question?
Senator Nelson. Mr. President, I did catch the question, but let me be very clear. I will only yield to questions that have things to do about Senate File 2. I will be very glad to yield to those questions. But members, asking questions that are far afield seem to be some sort of a, well, I won't cast motivation, so I'll just leave it right there. But definitely look forward to any questions about Senate File 2. And I do believe our debate should be contained to that issue, which, by the way, members, is Chapter 12. And I don't believe any of the questions that have been asked have anything to do with Chapter 12.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Fate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be happy to speak on our motivation. It's about protecting our students, our parents, and the teachers. So I'll ask the question again. Senator Nelson, if Senator Nelson will yield, is there anything in Senate File 2 that would guarantee paid sick leave for teachers who need to quarantine due to contraction of COVID-19?
I'm getting the motion that Senator Nelson is not willing to yield to that question. Senator Fate.
I'll continue, Mr. President. Thank you so much. Is there anything in this bill that would guarantee teachers leave should they have a family member or a child that becomes ill due to COVID-19? I'll take that as a no. Thank you, Mr. President. So when we walk into MSB, we are required to do a temperature check and screen for COVID-19 symptoms. Is there anything in this bill that would require basic health checks or screenings for kids should they enter the classroom? The answer is no. Thank you, Mr. President. So the other area of my concern is more specific to social and racial equity. I appreciate that we are concerned about the unmet needs of our kids, and I know that there needs to be a balance. But my fear is that while we're discussing achieving this balance, Senator Nelson is appearing to wanting to interrupt, some are not willing to acknowledge that opening schools before everyone is vaccinated will result in increased spread of COVID-19. Yes, young people are less likely to die than their elders from COVID-19, but young people are also capable of spreading the virus, whether symptomatic or asymptomatic. So I'm willing to acknowledge that we need to strike a balance between all of our needs, but will the other side, as Senator Nelson acknowledged, that to some degree, reopening schools with no coordinated plan will increase the spread of COVID-19? Probably no. So, Mr. President, we know that people of color...
Mr. Chair, or Mr. President, excuse me.
Senator Rosen, for what reason do you rise?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And I believe that there are being words put into Senator Nelson's, in her opinion, and I'd like to make sure that we stay on the topic of Senate File 2. And I cannot find it in Mason's, but I believe there is a ruling that you should not be reading from a piece of paper. So, Mr. President, please, please remind the body to not refrain from putting words into Senator Nelson's opinions.
Members,
thank you.
Mr. President.
If you would like a member to yield for a question, you ask the member to yield. You do that before each question. So if you have a question for a specific member, Mr. President, will Senator so-and-so yield? And then we ask that member if they will yield. It's either yes or no. If you have another question, you should ask that member to yield each time. So you don't put words into any member's mouths. You don't answer questions for them. Again, Senator Nelson has answered a number of questions. This bill is very specific according to Senator Nelson's answers. That questions we're getting into a point where it is getting close to dilatory. We're not there quite yet, but please keep your questions and the discussion focused on Senate File 2. Senator Kent, for what reason do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to talk about purpose of debate and to refer to something in Mason's. I want to thank you for making that point about members can ask if other members will yield, and the other members have the right to do so. But right now we are hearing members saying, oh, put your questions all together in one question, have it be in a list of questions. Members have submitted questions in writing. Members are now being told not to have questions in writing and not to read questions. So there's an awful lot of effort to police how members of the minority party can do debate. So I'm going to read from Mason's, section 80, paragraph 1, the purpose of debate. The purpose of legislative bodies is to reach their best joint judgment on the questions presented to them for decision. The decision is the decision of the group, not of the individual members. To reach the joint judgment of the body, the exchange of thought and the reasons of the members are essential. That exchange of thought is through debate. Every member has the right to present his thoughts and opinions and to argue and attempt to convince the other members of the group. Debate is one of the most fundamental characteristics of a legislative body. So, Mr. President, I would ask you to remind members that we have a right to ask questions. Yes, we understand this bill is narrow, but part of asking the questions about what's not in there is to make that point. That is the debate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kent. I don't think there's any confusion on whether or not Senator Nelson or any other members have answered any questions. Like I said earlier, if you have a question for a member, before you ask that question, please ask the member to yield. They may or may not yield, but before you ask another question, Mr. President, will Senator so-and-so yield? And then also in Mason's section 114, number 6, it says the purpose of a question is to obtain information and not to supply it to the, the purpose of a question is to obtain information and not to supply it to the body. A question may not contain statements or facts unless they be necessary to make the question and can be authenticated. Neither should a question contain arguments. And then additionally, Mason says if the first reply does not fully answer the question, It is the practice to permit a limited number of further questions to be asked. Okay, so.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Get back on topic. We are on Senate File 2. Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. President, and will Senator Nelson yield for a question?
Senator Nelson, will you yield?
Mr. President, I will yield to a question, but I must be clear. Senator Fateh, when I was saying I would not yield to questions that were far afield from Senate File 2, you took it as a no, that I did not support those things, or that's maybe what it sounded like, and I want to be very clear that was not the case. So, Senator Fateh, I look forward to your question about Senate File 2.
Senator Fateh to Senate File number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. And questions about people of color and our teachers are not from left field. I think they're very relevant to this debate. Thank you, Mr. President. We know that people of color, Black and Latino Minnesotans, are disproportionately dying due to COVID-19, and that is to say that there are more deaths from COVID-19 in these populations per capita than as a whole in Minnesota. And is there anything in this bill, Senate File 2, that would seek to address this disparity directly, that is, to mitigate the deaths due to COVID-19 within communities of color in Minnesota?
Senator Nelson to the question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Fateh, before you got here, certainly I authored the Teachers of Color Act, which passed this body in, I think it was the first Teachers of Color Act. So, however, our protections for teachers of color and protecting our students of color in Senate File 2, in a sense they are. Senator Fateh. Quite frankly, it is our students of color who have been hurt the most with the draconian school closures that have drug on because of the governor's mandate, far beyond what the science had shown. So I'm not sure where your question rests in that, but if it's about teachers of color and students of color, I have been a great advocate, will continue to be so. But just like so many things in all of the chapters of our law, it is not included in Chapter 12, which is the focus of Senate File 2, the governor's emergency powers to unilaterally close schools and alter their schedules.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Senator Nelson, and thank you, Mr. President. So my concern with this bill is that it'll unilaterally strip the power of the executive branch to coordinate the safe reopening of our schools. It contains no plan for teacher safety, no plan for teacher protections or benefits, and no plan to keep our parents safe. What this bill would essentially do is just rip off a Band-Aid. We know how hard school closures have been on families and kids, but this bill is irresponsible, it lacks adequate planning, and it would result in more disproportionate deaths of Minnesotans of color. Until we have a serious plan in place, I urge all my colleagues to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Next on the list, we have Senator Frentz, followed by Senator Swedzinski. Senator Frentz.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for a spirited debate. We're here talking about Senate File 2. Senate File 2 seeks to limit the governor's emergency powers now and in the future. And for this vigorous debate, we should be asking ourselves what the value to Minnesotans is, what the value to our school children is, and what the value to our state is of the exercise of those powers. And if you want to do that, Mr. President, you better ask how it's gone so far. A year or so ago, the virus became an issue that confronted all of us. As this body debated, negotiated, planned, made projections, there was a bit of a split about how serious this virus would be. The governor's emergency powers, when first invoked, allowed him under Chapter 12 to make decisions about restrictions of activity. Why? Because this is a virus that's transmitted when people breathe on each other. And the governor used those emergency powers to restrict activities where people would breathe on each other. And one thing we do know about this virus is that the more you restrict people breathing on each other, the fewer people catch the virus. And we likewise know that the fewer people that catch the virus, the fewer Minnesotans, the fewer of our brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers die from the virus. So into the virus and emergency powers debate we went. We heard a lot of different opinions on this floor. Meanwhile, the governor made decisions, tough decisions, about businesses closing and about our schools closing as relates to Senate File 2. School attendance was disrupted. It did have effects on our school kids. And so the question for us as a body in Senate File 2 is, would it be a good idea to prevent this governor from exercising powers in school scheduling, or would it be better to leave those emergency powers vested? A vigorous debate indeed. Meanwhile, we had our good neighbors to the west, North Dakota and South Dakota, and our friends to the south, Iowa, facing the same debates. Do we look to them for a guidance? Yes, we do, all the time. We now know that those states took a more open approach, less restrictive for activities, less restrictive for schools, and in my view, a simple choice to have more people breathe on each other in more ways, and more opportunities to spread the virus among those state citizens. One of the things my colleague Senator Matt Klein said about those states which made those choices is, this is not going to go well. I believe his exact words on this floor were, this decision will not age well. And we now have the benefit of actual facts, something we should throw around here more often, Mr. President, on the floor of the Senate. We have the CDC and numbers out yesterday about the fatality rate of our neighboring states in Minnesota per 100,000 from COVID. As of yesterday, North Dakota, 192 deaths per 100,000. South Dakota, 208 deaths per 100,000. Iowa, 167 deaths per 100,000. I'm sorry for every one of those families and for every one of those people that lost their lives to COVID. Minnesota, 114. Well, that starts to make it look, members of this body, as we debate Senate File 2, like it does matter when we restrict those activities, and that it may matter when we take action through executive order on schools, and when we tell businesses, you must restrict hours or restrict activity, or when we tell sporting events, you must be limited in your attendance. It starts to look a lot like those executive orders made a heck of a difference. How much difference, you ask? Well, in a state of 5.4 million people, as Minnesota is, if we had the fatality rate of our good friends in South Dakota, we would have seen 5,000 more Minnesota funerals, 5,000 more empty chairs, 5,000 more Minnesotans lost to COVID. Now, to all those businesses, to all our schools, to all the citizens who put up with the restrictions, who put up with the inconvenience, who put up with the stress of these executive orders, I would say to you, you too, whether you liked it or not, deserve credit for saving those lives. And to the governor, I would say, Governor, you and your team have repeatedly looked at the science and again made decisions that were based on how to protect the citizens of Minnesota. And we'll total up the damage on school kids, and we'll look at our business and our economy, and we're going to get a budget projection, Mr. President, to see how the pandemic's affected us financially. But I can tell you this, under the executive order scorecard, it's going to say Walz administration, 5,000 lives saved when compared to another state nearby. And that will be a comparison that we can make. Now, we're debating Senate File 2, emergency powers. Well, I like that discussion, I really do. I invite this body to ask, are we better off when we debate, share ideas like we did today, or are we better off when we refuse to engage with those people that are in a position to reach agreement? Do we want to pass Senate File 2? I'm guessing that some of us do. I'm going to be a no vote. Senate File 2 needs to pass the Senate, pass the House, and be signed by the governor. So what do we know about the governor's interest in his emergency powers? Well, we know this. He wrote a letter last summer saying to legislative leaders, can we engage on the end of my emergency powers? No agreement reached. He wrote this body on January 7th and said, as the legislative session begins this week, I recognize our shared interest in finding a pathway to work collaboratively to mitigate the effects of the pandemic and, here it goes, to ensure an orderly end of the peacetime emergency. That sounds like the governor reaching out to the Senate saying, hey, can we sit down and talk about emergency powers? Senate File 2 seeks to end some emergency powers, but I'm not aware of a whole lot of discussion back and forth between the Senate and the governor's office. January 21st, here comes another letter. Governor apparently not hearing too much from the Senate, and he says again, we need to work together to assure our response maintains the needed speed and flexibility in responding to the pandemic. And we need to ensure an orderly end of the peacetime emergency. Now, if we want to pass this, we got to sit down with the people that have the ability to vote yes. If you want Senate File 2 to be a part of Minnesota state law, you're going to have to get the support and approval of the House and the Senate, and you're going to have the governor say that he's okay with it. But I'm glad to report, Mr. President, that we are quite capable of doing that. I'd like to pay a small compliment to the Agriculture, Finance, and Policy Committee. Yesterday, we had the biofuels bill heard in committee, and I mention that not because it's relevant to Senate File 2, but what happened in that hearing was very relevant. We had testimony from several different witnesses on both sides of the issue. The chair allowed the Commissioner of Agriculture, directly appointed by the governor, to not only talk about the issue, but to present a possible amendment, then withdrawn. But the point is, the governor's voice was heard in that committee. We had Democrats and Republicans debate the issue. We are much more likely to reach an agreement on that issue. And likewise, for Senate File 2 and for emergency powers, we can sit down and hammer it out. I invite the members of the Majority Caucus to engage Senate Democrats, to engage the governor and talk about emergency powers. You got 2 letters from the governor. You've got an invitation from a member on the floor to have that discussion. A bill that does not have the participation of all the parties is not going to become law, and we should not do that. Now, this is the second bill this week that has come to the floor of this body that appears to have formal opposition by large groups of Minnesotans, and as best I can tell, no formal support from groups on the floor. I got an email from the Minnesota Rural Education Association this morning. I'm a greater Minnesotan. There are so few of us out there. And it said we oppose Senate File 2. That's the group that represents rural schools. So it begs the question how we have Senate File 2 on the floor here with no support from the Rural Education Association, no support for teachers, no support from school board members, but here it comes. And so finally, members, I would just say, when we bring legislation to the Senate floor, let's see if we can have a little conversation about what it takes to actually get it across the finish line. It's going to require both of us, and lots of us talk about the need to work together. And I would just say, for that discussion on Senate File 2, and for all the rest of it, Mr. President, you can count me in. Thank you.
Next, we have Senator Swedzinski, followed by Senator Johnson Stewart. Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if it was special session 1. I rise in opposition to the bill. I don't know if it was special session 1 or special session 2 or special session 3, but I ended up walking out on the Capitol Mall just for some reflection and maybe a little inspiration. And I came upon the World War II Memorial. And, you know, it was an unprecedented crisis in U.S. history, world history, Minnesota history, where the health and safety of our population was in jeopardy. And I paused in front of a plaque, and at that time, I think 1,000 Minnesotans had died of COVID. And in a plaque down on the Capitol Mall, it says 6,000 Minnesotans died in World War II. 6,000 Minnesotans died in World War II. And I thought to myself at that moment, well, we'll never hit that number. I mean, come on, we're going to take all these precautions and we're going to do the right thing and then we're going to allow the governor to do what he needs to do. And a couple weeks ago, we surpassed that number. We're at 6,400 deaths now. And in 4 years of international crisis, leading in 6,000 Minnesotans dead, we accomplished that in a year. And what we've learned from World War I is we need strong chief executives. Eisenhower and FDR and MacArthur and Patton, they didn't go to the local to Congress and say, how can we win this war? They needed the ability to act alone swiftly and certainly to take over this crisis. Well, we're at war now. And this war is not against tyranny or communism or fascism. This war is against a virus. And if you had asked me a year ago, could a virus be partisan? I would have said no, virus can never be partisan. We would come together and work together and do the right thing. But it is a partisan issue. But the governor needs our support. And I love Senator Uyghur's passion. And when he said it takes a coordinated effort. A coordinated effort. Yes, indeed. Some say in this body that local school boards should be responsible. It's a local decision. And that's a hard one, because our school boards are filled with dedicated professionals, their parents, business leaders, community activists that want to do the right thing by our kids. But what we don't have on our local school boards are epidemiologists and healthcare professionals and physicians and, yes, educators. We need to get our kids back in school. There's no debate over that. We all have heard from our parents and our administrators and our principals and our teachers and our students. We all want the kids back in school, but we want them to go back in school safely. Because I know better than most what it's like to look at that one desk and know that that child had some mental health issues and decided to do something that is a parent's worst nightmare. And now the teacher has to look at that empty desk for the rest of that term. We do not need to have more kids suffering from mental health and then taking the action of sending them back into the classroom and making the situation worse for them. The kids need to have prom. They want to go to band concerts. They want to have theater. They want to perform on the sports field. And yes, they want to go to their high school commencements. But the governor needs to do it safely. He alone, with the emergency powers vested in him, surrounded by the people that are the experts in the field, will do the right thing. Bloomington went full on a few weeks ago, and there was a COVID crisis in the transportation, and they immediately shut it down because the school bus drivers weren't safe. Our school bus drivers and our social workers, our cooks and our counselors, our paras and our principals deserve our unbridled, is that a thing? Our unbridled attention. And yes, our teachers. Those nearly 100,000 people that we're asking, stay 6 feet from the child. Make sure everybody has a mask on. Make sure you have that monster-looking plastic thing over your face. I don't know. All I know is our teachers are working twice as hard than they've ever worked before with none of the rewards. None of those kids leaving class going, hey, that was a great lesson, or thanks for inspiring me, or thanks for that great way you answered my question. Teachers aren't hearing those things. They want to be back in school. The parents want them back in school. The kids want to be back in school. But we must do it safely. And the governor needs that authority to do it the right way. If there's a silver lining in COVID, I hope it's this. I hope we all start realizing the first responders and the police officers and the firefighters and, yes, our educators, that we start putting them back up on that pedestal that they used to be on. I urge my members, my colleagues, my friends to vote against this bill today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next, we have Senator Johnson Stewart, followed by Senator Pratt. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters in college. I'm a grandmother. I have a 5-year-old grandson who's not in school. He's learning from home. I've taught at the University of Minnesota for over 25 years. I, too, have seen an empty chair for the rest of the semester after a student, actually several students in my teaching career have taken their own lives. I understand what this pandemic is doing to students, parents, staff, and the entire community. But I rise today as an employer, and I'm new here. I don't know how many of those of my colleagues are employers, but I am responsible for the salary and the livelihood and the health of my 30 employees. I don't think there's many in this room who employ that many people, and I sign their checks. I also work in the construction industry. It is not uncommon for me to get a call from somebody on, and by the way, it's heavy highway construction, so we're not in houses, we're in sewer pits and bridge zones. It is not uncommon for me to get a call in the middle of the day and say, hey, the OSHA inspector is coming. Make sure all your staff have their masks on. Make sure all your staff have gloves and their vests on, hard hats, etc. Fines are strictly imposed if we have a violation. So of course I quickly text all my staff. On Southwest LRT I have 20 people working. And I say make sure you have your masks on because frankly construction workers often will take them off. So what does that have to do with Senate File 2? Well, I heard earlier that this bill does not provide for any resources for school districts to provide PPE or protective equipment for teachers or staff. And I've also heard Senator Friends rise and say that we've heard, and Senator Uyghur as well, say that we have heard from school districts across the state who are not interested in this bill passing. And frankly, I understand. As I said earlier, I rise from the perspective of an employer. Right now, the governor has the responsibility for dictating whether our schools are in session. If we take that responsibility away from him, school boards and school districts, superintendents all over our state are going to be responsible, like I am, for the health and safety of all those teachers and staff and lunch ladies and janitors and school bus drivers who are now going to be asked, if school opens, to return to a workplace that is not safe. This is very relevant to this question because if we transfer liability from the governor to independent school districts to make these decisions, and yet we don't provide resources for those school districts to properly outfit their staff and workers with PPE, then frankly, I can't imagine any school district wanting to open. If I got a call that said, the OSHA inspector is coming around today at 2. Make sure your staff have gloves and masks. And I said, I know I can't swear on the floor. I don't care. I don't have any money. I'm not interested in buying those gloves or harnesses or boots. By the way, I paid for all of that. If I'll yield.
For what reason do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. And just another reminder, please, to direct all the debate to the President.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you for the reminder, Senator.
Mr. President, I'm sure you're very interested in this, so I'll talk directly to you. Anyway, I'm a teacher, so I'm used to engaging the entire room, so I apologize. Anyway, I'd be crazy if I didn't have any resources to outfit my staff, and yet I told them to go to work, because I know as soon as the OSHA guys showed up, I would be paying the fine. So I am strongly opposed to this. I don't have a question because Senator Nelson already answered the question that no, there are no provisions for resources for PPE or other protections for staff in this bill. And I cannot, in good conscience, transfer liability to the 336 school districts around the state and ask them to make those decisions for their thousands of employees. I think this is a question of liability and protection. We know why school districts are opposed to this bill, and I will be voting no.
The Secretary will give Senate File 2 its third reading.
Senate File Number 2, a bill for an act relating to state government.
Third reading. Next on the list, we have Senator Pratt, followed by Senator Abler. Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And let me just empathize with Senator Johnson-Stewart. I had a problem my freshman year as well that Senator Rest was so kind to coach me through. Mr. President, I would, as I've been sitting here, I'd like to ask a number of questions, and I'd ask if Senator Nelson would yield.
Senator Nelson, will you yield? She will. Senator Pratt.
Senator Nelson, we've heard a lot of questions about what's not in the bill and what the impact would be to the people working in schools. Does Senate File 2 remove any of the protections for involuntary leave under Executive Order 2021-01 that extended protections passed by this body last spring?
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt, it does not.
Thank you.
Senator Pratt.
Mr. President, would Senator Nelson yield for another question?
Senator Nelson will yield for another question. Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Senator Nelson, does SF2 prevent any coordinated plan or planning? Because we've heard that concern that there will be no coordinated planning if the governor's not directly engaged.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt, no, it does not prevent any coordinated planning or guidance.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd wonder if Senator Nelson would yield for another question.
Senator Nelson will continue to yield. Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Senator Nelson, as a former teacher, is it your experience that coordinated planning must come from the governor, or were you able to do coordinated planning within your school district?
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt. No, we did not have coordinated planning from the governor's office. As a middle school teacher, I was teaching during the time of Columbine. And we had much coordinated planning in how to better keep our school, our children safe. But it was at the local level where we knew the facilities that we were in, how they were used, and the students in them.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Nelson yield for yet another question?
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Pratt.
Senator Nelson, is there any prohibition from a district moving a school to distant learning if there is an outbreak in the building, in the school district, or in the surrounding community, including those school districts that have large populations of BIPOC students?
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Pratt, thank you for the very good question. No, there is no prohibition in schools determining how best to educate their children safely.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just one more question for Senator Nelson, if she'd yield again.
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Nelson, private schools have been open this entire time. Are you aware of any increase of deaths or illness in those schools that would have been prevented had the governor had authority over them?
Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Pratt, no, I am not aware. However, our private local schools have adjusted their schedules according to the conditions on the ground that are affecting their students.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Nelson. That's a very thoughtful and accountable answer by our local schools. Would Senator Swedzinski yield for a question?
Senator Swedzinski will yield. Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Senator Swedzinski, you just, I'm picking on you because you were one of the last ones to speak. Under Senate File 2, you mentioned the school boards have very concerned and expert people sitting on the school boards, but they don't have epidemiologists. Can you show me where in Senate File 2 a local board could not coordinate with public health officials or epidemiologists?
Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt, it doesn't say that.
Thank you. And Mr. President,
Pratt.
Would Senator Johnson Stewart please yield for a question?
Senator Johnson Stewart will yield. Senator Pratt.
Thank you. And again, Senator Johnson Stewart, because you were one of the last ones to speak. Where in the Senator Johnson Stewart, you mentioned about the resources and protective equipment. Where in the governor's announcement yesterday, where he encouraged schools to open, high schools and middle schools to open, did he provide additional resources and protective equipment for our schools and school districts?
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Mr. President, I'm not aware of where he did that.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Senator Nelson and Mr. President, I hope I'll have a chance for some closing remarks later in this debate. But you know, there's been a lot talked about in this bill, what's not in this bill. But I think what we've lost sight of is that this bill is about putting the decision whether to open or close in the hands of local officials and making that decision closest to the classroom. Not at a county level, not at a state level, but at a local level. Because in my district, what's happening in Shakopee is very different than what's happening 20 miles away down at New Prague. And we need to be able to adjust for those, because this virus has impacted our state differently. Senator French talked about the differences in deaths per 100,000 with North Dakota and South Dakota and Iowa, but he failed to tell you that Wisconsin has not had a closed school mandate and have 214 fewer deaths as of last week than the state of Minnesota on a cumulative basis. So, Mr. President, I'll stop my comments for now, but hopefully I'll have a chance to make some closing comments. Thank you.
Senator Pratt, that was a textbook example of how to ask questions on the Senate floor. Thank you. Next on the list is Senator Abler, followed by Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be a textbook example about asking no one to yield, so we'll have the contrast for the students at home. Mr. President, members, this actually has been, I think, a very interesting debate for the people watching at home. I think they are just interested in how we do our business here and how people freely can express their opinions, and for that I just say God bless America. And I think that for all the differences we have, we still remain free to speak and to debate on the floor from all over Minnesota. And I don't mind that people agree with me or not, but it's just really fortunate that we still have that liberty to debate these things. And so, Mr. President, those same people watching at home, actually, a lot of them vote in Minnesota. 80% of them voted last time. And in 2018, a bunch of them voted, and they voted to send Governor Walz into office. And that's fine, that was their choice. They also voted for school board members, those same voters, to go represent their interest in their schools. And there's 800,000 or so students, and my district has like 38,000 or so. And they elected the people that have risen to the occasion. Some have been there a while, some were new. And they said, you know, I trust you to look after my 38,000, I trust you to look after my kid. I trust you when you have to decide busing safety. I trust you when you have to decide lockdown drills. I trust you if a tornado comes, you're going to keep my kids safe because you're going to have practices for these kinds of tragedies. And so the voters that voted for the governor voted for the school board members. And I want to point out that in 2020, every one of those voters voted for enough of us to get us here. And I don't think that they thought that they were just voting for one person to run everything. And I think as the people were queried about this back in March, they were kind of okay that, you know, it's an emergency, let's hunker down, and Governor, you know, do what you have to do. We don't know much about this terrible thing. But as time has gone on, now 11 months ago have gone by, we know a lot more. And we had better, in my opinion, and to those voters, thanks for voting for all of us. Thanks for giving me a chance to stand here and speak on behalf of the people I represent. I know the people in my district, by and large, want their kids to be in school. And they would like my district to be able to be the one to decide when they can go. We talked about sports. This is not a sports bill, but it kind of evolved to the point that schools were able to be a little more autonomous. They were deciding sports, and they were deciding opening days, and they were kind of abiding by their local conditions. And then in the end of November, the governor decided that he was going to cancel playoff games for these kids. And I didn't come here to impugn the governor. I have, on every time I've stood here, I've said I think he means well. But sometimes I think he's plain wrong. I think the impact on those kids getting their football playoff games, championship game canceled, because if they couldn't find the extra opponent to play suddenly, is hugely traumatic, and I don't think they saved any lives. I think the school boards that all the people in this state voted for everywhere were quite capable to decide that they were safe. Are they epidemiologists? Are they nurses, doctors? No. But they know how to talk to people, and they know that in my district that my school board members are in charge of 38 38,000 kids. And they do not want to see one of those kids come to harm. And neither do the teachers who work in those districts, or the parents, or the custodians, or the students themselves, or the coaches, or the neighbors and the seniors who are so far away from education you cannot believe it. And so, Mr. President and members, it is time we find a way to move beyond COVID. What does that look like? We can debate at long length about how many powers the governor should retain. But if there's an easy one, it's this one. Because there's already duly elected people in charge. And I will tell you, Mr. President, they don't want to be on the news. And I can tell you, if anybody thinks that the teachers in those districts don't have a voice that will be listened to about protection, about transportation, about distancing, about opening, about hybrid, about remote, then you have not been listening. The dialogue at a local level is robust. And Mr. President, I would actually add that it's more robust than the dialogue that happens when one well-intended individual decides everything. I will make you a case in point. Just last week, the governor decided he was going to let large restaurants open to 100 more people. He decided 2 days before, just like 3 days before reservations for Valentine's Day. Really? Now, again, I will ascribe to him good intent, and maybe he didn't think it was safe till then. But if you have a restaurant that holds 500 people and you can get from 150 to 250, that's like at least 3 cycles. To fill up 300 seats on Valentine's Day with your romantic person, you're not going to, you maybe made plans a while ago. You're going to stay home, you're going to roast a turkey, you're going to go out for a walk, you're going to go to Iowa or wherever you're going to go, but it's, sometimes the decisions that get made in a small group aren't as good as the ones made in a big group. And I will suggest to you, Mr. President, as well, that those school board members that live in every corner of the state, in all of our districts, know exactly what's going on in their locale. And if they don't, there's a local public health agency in every one of those counties that does. That local public health knows how to talk to the CDC. They actually listen to the Department of Health. And if the governor has a profound thought to share with those particular groups in guidance, they can do that. And so, Mr. President, I just don't understand how we're ever going to get past this time if this one is the toughie. I've spoken to the governor 3 times last year. I told you this on more than one occasion. I talked to him in July and in September and November. I would have enjoyed talking to him many more times to counsel him my advice, and for many reasons we just didn't get that opportunity. And he's a busy guy, and I get that. But on each of those occasions I said, Governor, you've got to share the load. And I mentioned before on the floor one time, there's a picture of him in the Tribune. He's in his like porch office thing there at the mansion, and signing one of the bills. We gave him $500 million or something we've tried to help him. He's there signing the bill. One man against COVID, carrying the load. That works for a little while, but it's not a way to run the place. And this is the start. And, you know, I don't know that I'm persuading anybody, but I would hope that maybe I could, that if this is not the way to start opening up Minnesota safely with people who know and care and have resources, then what is the way going to be? And just one thing else. We heard from West Virginia. There was a medical official from West Virginia came, and they were #1 in some of their COVID work. #1. We have never been #1 in anything on this. Do you know what the singular thing I got out of that conversation was in West Virginia? What the health people did and the governor? They actually talked to us. They talked to the legislators, they talked to the communities, they talked to hospitality, they talked to everybody, and they brought them into the decision process. Mr. President, that is how COVID is going to go away or be managed in Minnesota. People who care, people who touch a lot of lives. And Mr. President, with that, I will urge people in a way that may surprise everyone, we should all vote for this thing and encourage the governor we're with you. We're not here to do anything except to move Minnesota one step forward. So, Mr. President, I urge members to vote yes on Senate File 2. Thank you very much.
Senator Abler, that was not textbook on keeping your remarks short. Next on the list is Senator Kiffmeyer, followed by Senator Chamberlain. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. My goodness, Senator Pratt and Senator Abler, now I get to step into this. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to especially say thank you to Senator Carla Nelson for bringing forward Senate File 2. Senate File 2 is a very, very important bill. And the thing I'm most grateful for Senator Nelson bringing forward this bill, she expresses the trust in our local school boards. She expresses the confidence in their capable management. She expresses the knowledge that they can ask for advice, and they do many, many times. We have local public health, we have state public health. There's advice aplenty. The heart to use that advice, to take that advice, is represented here in Senate File 2. We have to really recognize that when we have a state as big as we do, from Cloquet to Roseau, Redwood Falls, Chatfield, and many others, including Minneapolis and St. Paul. Yes, they are all school districts in those areas. Very big difference having the school district of Minneapolis and the school district of Roseau. But what I do know is in every case, those local school boards are diligent, they work hard, and they work with the teachers who work hard. But there are a few things that need to be recognized here too. Parents and students. Parents and students recognize the differences, and they are asking us to please respect their local school boards and the differences in the geography and the differences within their schools. Let's realize too that under these emergency powers, yes, tragically, the COVID deaths, either from it or with it, but recognizing that that is serious. What is also serious is the harm that has come when students have not been in a situation to relate to their teachers. Not every student is cut out for distant learning, much less the parents. And I assure you, our local school boards are quite capable, quite confident. Matter of fact, I consider it a disrespect to not recognize they're capable and trustworthy for our students. With that, I'm glad to stand together today and support Senate File 2 and encourage others to vote for local control and for capable, trustworthy school boards. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next, we have Senator Chamberlain, followed by Senator Marty. Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Simple point that we've lost here during the debate is that kids deserve to be in school. Kids deserve to be in school. For all the yelling and, well, not yelling, for all the passionate discussions about the classroom and the teachers, that's important. Kids deserve to be in school. The governor has acknowledged that because of his change of course yesterday, thankfully. I do appreciate it. The parents across the state do. He has finally reached that conclusion, and we are happy for it. More importantly, the CDC has been saying, we like to throw around the CDC, so here we are. The CDC says kids need to be in school. The CDC says kids have to be in school. The CDC says if the kids aren't in school, they are doing much worse than they would be if they were in school. The CDC and hundreds of studies and hundreds of countries have said kids need to be in school because they're safer and better off in school than they are out of school for the mental health and all the other reasons that we could go through. Kids deserve to be in school. Now, who didn't you mention and who supports this? Now, all due respect to our lobbyist groups and our organizations, whom I have the great pleasure of speaking with frequently now, Senator Swedinsky, not you specifically, but AMD, AMSD, and all those. Who didn't you talk about? Think about this. Who was not mentioned? parents. Believe me, parents believe their kids deserve and need to be in school. That is what you didn't talk about. Kids deserve and need to be in school. That's all we have to remember, because the CDC says that. A lot of people, a lot of organizations, a lot of studies around the country and around the world have said that. They're doing much worse not in school, that school is very safe. Parents support their kids being in school because they know their kids need to be in school. That's the point, and we have to remember the parents. Thank you, Mr. President and members.
All right, members, next we have Senator Marty, and then final remarks by the bill's author, Senator Nelson. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I've been listening to this whole debate. It's not the most comforting debate to hear. A lot of things get brushed aside. And to recap one small part of it, there have been a lot of questions asked about whether the bill has any funding to help the schools with PPE or any of the other expenses they have. And Senator Nelson's been very clear, no, this bill does not provide any additional funds for school. No, it doesn't provide any efforts and resources to help the schools do it. That's not what she's saying the bill is about. The only reason I mentioned that part of the debate is that Senator Pratt said earlier, he asked Senator Johnson Stewart a question about whether the governor had any funding for the schools, and I've seen the governor's education package, and it seems to be very generous to the schools. He's proposing a lot of additional funding because he rightly recognizes the great need for it. But that's not in this bill. I understand that, but this is a narrow bill. And I want to say I agree with a good number of things that some of my colleagues have said, even Senator Abler and Senator Kiffmeyer. They said we got wonderful local school boards and smart school board members. We ought to have local control. You know, I really agree with that. I can tell you, I know Senator Uyghur, who's a former school board member, he agrees with that. I think we all agree with that. And those are the people that Senator Nelson says should be making these decisions. We should trust them, trust them. Well, of the school districts that I represent, I've heard from only one of the school boards reached out and told me, and they don't support this. And I heard from Senator Friends. I haven't been reaching out on this. I'm not on the Education Committee, but Senator Friends said one of the rural school district groups spoke against the bill or wrote a letter against the bill. So I do have a question. I wonder if Senator Nelson would yield.
Senator Nelson will yield. Senator Marty.
Senator Nelson, have any local school boards that you know of, specific school districts, asked for this legislation? Have any school boards said that they've been hamstrung in their efforts to open the schools because of the governor's executive orders? Do you have any letters of support for Senate File 2 from any of the school districts, from any of the school boards, from any of the superintendents, the people who you say want to make the decisions and should make the decisions? I'm just curious, do you have any letters of support for any of them for this legislation?
Members, again, just a reminder, address your comments to and through the President. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Marty, there have been many, many letters. I would not say that school boards have taken positions. I've not asked school boards to take formal positions. But again, I do believe the authority about when their schools are ready for kids to go back safely do belong in those local school boards. And even the letters of opposition, as I said, from the school boards was all about we support, we support, we support. But the last line was we do not support Senate File 2, but no reason given. But clearly, the governor, we're thankful he's moving in the right direction here. But so there's been plenty of support, Senator Marty. I'm not sure how you would like to have that classified.
Senator Marty.
Mr. President, Senator Nelson, I'm not sure I heard the answer to whether any school boards or superintendents are actually supporting this legislation. You're describing this as how much you respect them and how much you care about them and how much you want to make sure they have the ability to do the decision-making. And I haven't heard any of them say they've been hamstrung in any way, shape, or form by the governor in their ability to open up the schools. And that's what I'm trying to find. Do you have any letters or anybody who's told you, yes, I as superintendent of this district, or yes, we as a school board support this? Whether it's a letter or not, do we have anybody, any of the school districts supporting it?
Senator Nelson, I don't believe there was a question. Or Senator Marty, are you asking Senator Nelson to yield? I didn't.
Yes, Mr. President, I was asking. I didn't get the answer. I was.
Senator Nelson, will you yield?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Martyr, yes, I have heard from school officials who have been hamstrung and have had to change their plans based upon what the governor has dictated. And thank you so much.
Senator Marty, further comments?
Mr. President, yeah, just I guess I wonder. I don't know if Senator Abewer's in the chamber, but
not in the chamber at this
okay,
time,
Mr. President, if anybody in the chamber would know, I'd appreciate hearing. But I know the Anoka-Hennepin district is the biggest district, and I was just curious because of what he said. If anybody knows if the Anoka-Hennepin School Board is saying they need this legislation, because this is trying to fix a problem apparently that none of the school boards seem to say they have. And I'm just trying to figure out. So if anybody who represents any of Anoka-Hennepin has an answer, I'm just curious if any district anywhere sees there's a problem we're trying to fix here. And if not, Mr. President, I just think it's a bill that's not solving any problem because none of the people we're trying to help here are calling for this bill.
Next, we've added a few names to the list. Next is Senator Duckworth, followed by Senator Pratt. Senator Duckworth. Senator Duckworth, just make sure that switch is on. It's on the desk. There you go. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you. It's the first time I used a microphone in the chamber. I appreciate it, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill and to shed some light on the questions that were just asked as it relates to school boards and school board members specifically. I find myself in a very unique position as it relates to this bill, Senate File 2, because I was the chair of a school board when this pandemic became a reality for all of us. And I worked with my peers, I worked with the superintendent to do what we could do at the local level to ensure student safety, teacher safety, staff safety, while also trying to provide for a great education for our students. Over the last 3 weeks, I've been in school buildings throughout my district, Lakeville, Farmington, Randolph. I've talked with board members, I visited with superintendents, and I can tell you that there have been several school board members, other district staff and officials who have been asking for local control from the very beginning of the onset of this pandemic. So I hope that helps to answer that question and shed some light on it. There's been conversation regarding why someone might be motivated to support this bill, and I'll be very clear in my motivations for supporting Senate File 2. I support this bill because it puts the students of Minnesota, their education, their social-emotional well-being first by returning that authority and that local control to the elected officials who are there to provide the governance and the authority when it comes to their learning. So hopefully that adds to the conversation in terms of what school boards think. They are asking for this, not all of them, but the folks, just as recent as this morning as I was talking to a school board member and having a conversation with the superintendent, they're looking for this kind of relief because their hands, in many regards, have been tied in terms of the flexibility they need to best meet the needs of their students and their staff when providing their education. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next on the list is Senator Pratt, followed by Senator Nelson. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I read it, Senate File 2 essentially codifies the announcement the governor made yesterday, and it puts the decision for keeping schools open or closed or distance learning or hybrid in the hands of locally elected school boards. Yes, the governor did announce that yesterday, that they could begin opening next week. He made that announcement 3 weeks after saying he doubted middle and high school students would be in person learning at all this year. He made that announcement after hearing from parents, kids, and child advocates. He made that announcement 24 hours before this bill was heard on the Senate floor, but it was okay to tease it for 3 days ahead of time so that it had the maximum political impact. Members, the science hasn't changed, the polls have. No one could have anticipated that a governor would use our kids in our schools for political gain when we wrote this statute so many years ago. I sat on a school board during a pandemic.
Mr. President.
Senator Kent, for what reason do you rise?
I rise for a point of order. I believe the Senator Pratt has impugned the motives of the governor of the state of Minnesota.
Members, a reminder, I mentioned it earlier, please don't impugn the motives. In your discussion, Senator Pratt, discussion on Senate File 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize, and I guess I'm not as model in my comments as I was earlier. Anyway, Mr. President, I sat on a school board for during a global pandemic. We had a lot of questions about how the virus spread and how to keep our staff and our students safe. Now, admittedly, it was a much different virus, and it wasn't quite as contagious as this one, but despite the fact, we still had a lot of questions, and we took a lot of precautions. We've heard today that Senate File 2 will remove health protections for staff and students, will prevent local school boards from coordinating their planning, and every one of those assertions was proven false just earlier, a few minutes ago. They were shown to be misleading to the bill in front of us because none of those issues were even addressed in the governor's announcement yesterday. I mentioned earlier that the best decisions are made closest to the classroom. And members, I'm voting for Senate File 2 because that's exactly what this bill will rightly do. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr.
Next,
President.
Senator Johnson, for what reason do you rise?
Just some clarification on Senator Kent's point of order. Is the imputing just members in this body or folks outside of this body as well?
Yeah, thank you, Senator Johnson, for that clarification. Section 121 of Mason's Decorum and Debate, 121 number 2, it starts with no person may indulge in personalities or impugn motives of members. It's on page 94. So not that it was right or wrong, but the governor is not included in impugning motives of members. Again, not that it's right or wrong. Okay, members, next is Senator Nelson, followed by Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members. There's no doubt that this body has great concern and passion for the well-being of our children, and that is so tied to their education. It's a matter of students' health that we get our students back in school. We have heard repeatedly about the devastation that has been caused by the prolonged closures. And of course, it's important for economic stability. We've heard about that as well. Just to note, the Brookings Institute found that parents with minor children comprise about 1/3 of our country's workforce. And the status of schools and child care programs now will heavily dictate the ability and speed of the robustness of our economic recovery. And you've heard from parents all across our state who want their children to be back in school. But you know, this bill doesn't do that, members. This bill just simply says that the local elected school officials will make that decision. And we've heard we've heard comments, you know, COVID is serious. I think everybody in this chamber knows how serious this disease is. Just like many of you, I've lost loved ones to this disease. And we've heard about guidance versus mandates. And this bill does not prohibit guidance. It encourages it, but it does prohibit mandated closures solely based on emergency powers. We've heard a lot about resources, and yes, our schools need resources. It's about 42% of our state budget. And of course, the feds have come in with $1 billion of funding for our schools. Much of that came through me as the education chair in approving those LAC requests. Those were for things like resources and PPP. And you might think, well, why do we need Senate File 2 if the governor has already done this? Well, there's one reason, members. That's because we must prevent this disaster from happening again. We must prevent a governor from using emergency powers for nearly a year to keep our kids out of school, at a time when the science has shown kids are not super spreaders. The fatality of the disease is much lower than what we originally thought. And the damage from keeping our kids locked out of schools by a governor fiat has been incredibly dangerous to our children, our families, our economy. It is essential that these important decisions rest with those who are most affected, those closest to the situation, who know the issues the best, know the concerns, know the risks, know what has been, what mitigation efforts have taken place. So members, this bill is needed. If you want to prevent this type of emergency powers being used to close schools, regardless of what the science says, regardless of what the CDC says, regardless of what parents and kids want, then you will vote no. This bill is a preventative bill. We hope we are never in a situation like this again in our lifetimes, but we may be. And it is important that the power to close school schedules not be rested in a governor based upon Chapter 12, peacetime emergency powers. I encourage a green vote.
Next, we have closing comments by Senator Kent and then Senator Gazelka. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members. We have had a long, interesting debate today, a lot of conversation about what debate should look like. I just want to say, because I think it bears repeating, we all care about our students in Minnesota. We all care about their learning, we all care about their health, their physical health, their mental health, and we all care about their families, all of which are directly affected by this pandemic. We all want our schools open. I have stood on this floor multiple times over many special sessions and said that very thing over and over again. We all have. That is not a subject of debate. But we've all also known, many of us have said, I think mostly all of us have said, that we want our schools to be open safely. The result of Senate File 2, from the bill author's own words, will open schools full-time, in person, and without any resources. Senate File does nothing to make schools safer or better. So Senate File 2 cannot be seen as a serious proposal. This is why, as we've heard repeatedly, it is not supported by a number of organizations who on every day of the year are deeply committed to local control. They're dedicated to it this year, this day of the year too, while we sit here and have this debate. This is not about opening schools. This is not about keeping kids safe. This is not about working together to solve a historic problem. This is not about the opportunity gap. This is not about addressing COVID. This is not about protecting school workers. And if it's not any of those things, if it's not a serious proposal, what is it? And I think we've just heard that. This is about trying to score political points against the governor.
And that is sad and unfortunate. No one in this body believes this bill is going to become law. This is not about working together to get our schools open.
Mr. President, point of order.
I'm almost finished, sir. Mr. President, if I
Senator
could
Pratt,
add
for what
2
reason do you
seconds.
Well, Senator Kent just said that this is about scoring political points against the governor, and I think that goes to the motivation that we've been talking about so often and that she just mentioned about my remarks, and I just want to be consistent. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator, members, again, don't impugn the motives of other members. Senator Kent, please continue.
And Mr. President and members, I very specifically did not speak to any individual. I am talking about the effect of this proposal. That is what the desired result is. So, as I was about to finish, and this makes the point, in this body, in the Minnesota Senate, we can and we should do better. We owe it to our students and to their families. And I strongly encourage a no vote on this bill.
Senator Gazelka.
Are we listening? Do you hear what I hear? What about the kids? What about the parents of the kids? The student who throws his iPad across the room because he can't learn math from home. The parents that are trying to figure out how to make their kids successful and they're at home struggling. Do you not hear that? I hear a lot of it, and I can't believe that I'm the only one that does not hear that. And you could make the excuse a year ago that when we were first looking at this, that we didn't know what we were doing and forfeited a half a year of school for kids based on the governor's decisions. But you cannot make that same conclusion now. Not with the CDC saying it's safe, World Health Organization, countless countries with their schools open, countless states, mostly run by the GOP, with their schools open, parochial schools open, and no danger. You can no longer make the case that kids should not be in school full-time. And by full-time, I don't mean 1 day a week. In-person to me is 5 days a week. I don't even know if there's one public school right now that has a high school that has 5 days a week in-person learning. It can't be many if it is. And that's because of the restrictions that are set about by the governor's mandates that have made it impossible to do that. But can you not hear the kids? Can you not hear them? And I get that some teachers are concerned about their safety, but that has proven not to be the case. I think it was Senator Uyghur that talked about we're putting 1 million people at risk, students and the staff. I think it's one person, school-age person, has died of COVID in Minnesota, right around that number. Are they at risk? Absolutely not. And if you look at most teachers, they're under age 50. I think the total deaths, all deaths combined in Minnesota, is 139 deaths under age 50. So we got to stop talking about, we got to make sure these people are safe. We're all focused on getting the vaccine out, getting it out to people over 65. That's always where this crisis has been. And as we do that, you can't even make the excuse that they'll bring it home to grandmother. Is it not essential that our kids are in school? Again, the science shows it over and over and over, and certainly in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the reports I hear are that the kids of color are falling farther and farther behind. How can we allow that? How can we allow that, members? How can we allow that? I've talked to school board leadership, and they're divided because of the teachers union not wanting the teachers in the classroom and struggling about which way do we go when we have this conflict among groups that are normally heading all the same direction. But we cannot allow our kids not to have that opportunity to be in the classroom 5 days a week. They're absolutely essential, and those teachers in front of them is essential, every bit as essential for nurses to be in hospitals. And we all should be incredibly grateful for their work, but we cannot any longer allow them not to be in the classroom. Not 1 day a week, not 2 days a week, but 5 days a week. All the science, all the data points to this as a clear direction that we can go. And to not do it is probably the biggest mistake that our governor is going to make over this whole COVID epidemic. We cannot allow this any longer. So if you're voting no on this bill, think about that, because this is the bill that continues to push that message, get our kids back in the classroom. Let local control do it, just like they do the flu. They manage the flu locally. We got to get our kids in back in the classroom. So if you're voting no for this, perhaps it's because, I won't even say it. You should be voting yes for this bill.
Members, we're on final passage of Senate File 2. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members, just a reminder, after you vote at your own desk, please exit the chamber through the front door. Members entering the chamber from alternate locations, please enter through either the retiring room or the side doors. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in the retiring room. Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote.
I won't desk where I was sitting.
Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I will call on Senator Frentz to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Frentz.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. President. Second of all, Senator Carlson votes no.
Carlson votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Champion votes no.
Champion votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Clausen votes no.
Clausen votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Dibble votes no.
Dibble votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Dietzick votes no.
Dietzick votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Eaton votes no.
Eaton votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Herr votes no.
Herr votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Isaacson votes no.
Isaacson votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Latz votes no.
Latz votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator McEwen votes no.
McEwen votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Newton votes yes.
Newton votes yes. Senator Frentz.
Senator Pappas votes no.
Pappas votes no. Senator Frentz.
Senator Wickland votes no.
Wickland votes no.
Thank you.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes aye.
Anderson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Weber votes aye.
Weber votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Ingebrigtsen votes aye.
Ingebrigtsen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Newman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Westrom votes aye.
Westrom votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 40 ayes and 27 nays, the bill is passed and is titled agreed to. Next order of business is the 13th order of business, announcements of Senate interest. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Human Services Committee will meet at 2 o'clock, and we'll be stopping by 3 o'clock. Thank you. Please be prompt.
Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Civil Law Committee will meet 15 minutes after the close of session, which I guess is also 2 o'clock. And that'll be room 15 as well as virtual option. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to acknowledge a very special day in our American Indian communities. February 14th is a day that we usually acknowledge our loved ones and our cherished ones, but it's also a very important day in our communities as we recognize our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. And so with that, I would like to share a proclamation that has been shared by our governor, because it's important to remember that our American Indian women make up only 1% of our state population, yet 8% of those women and girls are murdered in Minnesota or have been murdered in Minnesota between 2010 and 2018. It's also important to remember that between 27 and 54 American Indian women and girls in Minnesota went missing on any given month from 2012 to 2020. Our Indigenous girls, women, boys, our Two-Spirits, our LGBT community, and our non-gender conforming people continue to be targeted on violence and murder, and it is our responsibility to ensure that we are not allowing this to happen. At this minute, I would like to yield to my Indigenous sister, Senator Torres-Ray.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Mr. President and Senator Kunish-Bodin, it is my great honor to serve with the first American Indian woman elected to the Minnesota Senate. And it's also my privilege to be wearing this piece today that will remind me of the work that we did with the Task Force of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. I will continue this work, and I make a promise to the community that I will do whatever is in my power to implement the recommendations of the task force. According to the National Crime Information Database, over 84% of Native women experience violence in their lifetimes, and more than 4 out of 5 experience sexual violence. This is an ongoing crisis that affects Indian country and all of the reservations in urban and rural communities. An outstanding 97% are victims of non-Native perpetrators. Indigenous women continue to have the highest rates of foreseeable sexual assault and reported rates of domestic violence up to 10 times higher than all other women in the United States. There is no comprehensive estimate of Indigenous women who are missing or who have been murdered since the beginning of colonization. The targeting of Indigenous people for violence and invisibility of harm experienced by Indigenous people remains a human rights issue. I yield to Senator Kunesh-Podein.
Thank you.
Senator Kunish. And members, just a reminder, no need to yield to other members, but Senator Kunish, please continue.
Kind of an old house practice. But I just wanted to end this to remind this body of the work that we did together in 2009 to create the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force of Minnesota. And in 18 months and a very small amount of money, we successfully studied, collected data, spoke to community members, brought together a task force that did incredible work, and that report was shared to the legislature just this year. And so I would like to renew Minnesota's commitment to bringing awareness of our Indigenous women, girls, boys, men, LGBTQ, two-spirit, transgender, and gender nonconforming relatives who have gone missing or murdered, who have been tortured, raped, trafficked, assaulted, and who have not had the proper attention and justice. And I would like to invite all of you to share and continue to cooperate and collaborate on ending this terrible pandemic. Thank you very much, members.
Any further announcements of Senate interest? Senator Uyghur.
Excuse me, Mr. President, may we stand in a moment of silence in tribute and
Senator
memory?
Uyghur, we can do that after we adjourn. I'll go right to you after adjournment. Any other announcements of Senate interest? Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of Senator Draheim, Housing, Finance, and Policy will meet at 2 p.m. And Mr. President, I move that the Senate do now adjourn until Monday, February 22nd at 11 a.m.
Senator Gazelka moves that the Senate do now adjourn until Monday, February 22nd at 11 a.m. And members, just a quick reminder, Senator Uyghur has a short announcement right after adjournment. But on the motion to adjourn, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion prevails. The Senate is adjourned. Senator Uyghur.
Thank you, Mr. President, members. Just following up on the resolution shared by Senator Kunish and Torres Ray, if we could stand and show our respect for those murdered victims.
Members, please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you, members. The Senate is adjourned.